Hey everyone, it's Stacy with the Mental Fitness Center. You can follow us on Facebook, the Mental Fitness Center, Instagram, the Mental Fitness Center, or if you're more interested in individual therapy, which we're doing teletherapy right now as well, then you can go to our website, www.slawrencetherapy.com. Okay, today I wanted to go over the different levels of consciousness, and I think this is important in the time that we're in, to understand where fear is coming from, because sometimes it's really hard to access, and if you don't understand the levels of consciousness and how to get to those different levels, then it might be hard to address that fear in general. So I'm gonna grab my whiteboard. Okay. The best way I've found to explain the levels of consciousness is drawing a iceberg. Now, everyone has seen this drawing before, right? And, that's why they say the Titanic sunk, was because they only saw a little piece of the ice, and then underneath it there was a lot more ice. So it's the same concept for levels of consciousness. So the first level we're going to talk about is going to be this up above the water, the part that we're really aware of, and this is our conscious awareness. So if you've watched my last couple videos, this is everything that happens in your prefrontal cortex. So this is your executive functioning. This is, some people call it like their monkey mind. So people who have a hard time meditating because they're very distracted, that's their conscious awareness getting in the way. They're raising themselves up to this conscious awareness, and they're like, oh, I have to do this. And I do this too. I'm constantly battling with this part. That you're thinking about other things, like if maybe someone's talking to you and you're off in your own world thinking about your to-do list or what needs to get done, that's conscious awareness. So another name that I call it is your ego. So you'll hear me swap out throughout my videos. I use those interchangeably of like, well, what's your ego telling you? The ego is like the critical part of your brain. The ego is really that monkey voice inside your head that you're very aware of, that you understand, that's trying to problem solve, that tries to think logically, right? So the next level is going to be down here, and this is what we want to focus on a lot. Actually, let's get down to this one. This is unconscious. So this is like when you're sleeping, you get down really, really deep. It's hard for us to intentionally access that and then get to anything that's there. The area we really want to focus is right here, which is your subconscious. Now, people who do meditation or prayer or any kind of reflection, like when you're driving home, and do you ever like drive home and you get home and then you don't know how you got home? You were in your subconscious. Like your subconscious was taking you, telling you where to turn, having you stop at the red light, even though you were kind of in another place. Your subconscious knew what was going on. So the subconscious is, if we look at physically what happens in the subconscious, it is where our heart rate is monitored, because you don't think about your heart rate, right? Your body is just doing it. Or breathing, like you don't have to tell yourself to breathe every time you're supposed to breathe. Your body just does that. These are all subconscious tasks that our body does to take care of ourselves. It also regulates our temperature here. So those are the physical aspects of it. Let's look more into the psychological aspects. So when we're in conscious awareness, we're very much in current awareness of what is happening in this moment. When we're in our subconscious, it's very much related to the past, and it's also where we store almost all of our memories. And we have a massive capacity in our subconscious to store memories. The problem is, a lot of times people don't remember things, so they think that it's not there, but really they're trying to use their conscious awareness to think of something when really it's stored deep down into the subconscious. Now, what this has to do with the fear reaction is your current belief could be, you could be telling yourself, I'm safe. You know, everything's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. That's your current belief, what you're trying to believe. But in your subconscious, you could have long-standing beliefs even from your childhood that have to do with safety, of like, I've been in a situation similar to this, or I've been in a feeling that feels like this before. It doesn't even have to be like, at least not in my lifetime, I've never had to deal with a pandemic. However, there are similar feelings that the pandemic brings out that feel similar to stuff in my past, and it triggers that stuff in the past. But it's hard to have awareness of it because it's sitting in my consciousness. So these are, like, if you get really into psychology and treatment and things, this is, when we do treatment, we are looking at what people, what I like to do is look at what people are holding in their subconscious, what beliefs they have about themselves that is a memory, or that it's from the past and it's just been repeated over and over and over. It's like driving the same way to work. You do it so many times you don't even have to pay attention because it gets cataloged into your subconscious. This is the same with the beliefs we have about ourselves. So if I think I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm not pretty, I am a failure, I am unlovable. These are beliefs that at one time when we were young we had, and it was current, and then over and over and over and over we tell ourselves that belief, and then it gets ingrained into the subconscious. So when we're actually doing therapy, we're trying to shed some light into the subconscious and see what's stuck there, what beliefs we have subconsciously that we don't even know we have, and how that is affecting us in our current life and how we can move past those beliefs. So when you think about your experience with the coronavirus and an increase of anxiety, I'm going to assume the biggest feeling that's coming with it for people is anxiety. So when you think about the fear and the anxiety that's coming up, think about other times where you felt a similar way and see if there's any connection between the two. Now, one technique that I really like doing is meditation. So I will admit that when I first started doing meditation and heard about meditation, I thought it was hocus pocus. I thought it was, for these like monks, or I thought it was for these hippies. And it took me honestly about 6 months to really, really see a significant benefit from meditation, because I would do it. I signed up for a 2-year advanced training in hypnotherapy, and we start every session off with meditation. And it was for the first couple months that these people would like meditate, and they would be like, oh, I found that in my sacral chakra there was a little elf that got lost and I helped her find her, like all this stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking? Like, I went through my to-do list about 17 times and like thought really hard about, like, I really wanted to open my eyes and peek and see what everyone else was doing. I didn't understand how people could get to that depth, and I just stuck with it. And honestly, about 6 months before I really was able to be like, oh, wow, there's tons of stuff here that I can do once I get into this state. Now, the reason meditation is effective is because we start in our conscious awareness, the top of that iceberg, and then the more we relax down and let go of those conscious thoughts, the more we can get into our subconscious mind. And there's many things we can do in our subconscious mind. When we're doing like hypnotherapy for actual therapy, there's trauma healing that can happen there. For meditation, though, this is where we can start to change the narrative that we have. So if our narrative, our conscious narrative is, I'm not going to have enough, how am I going to pay my bills, I'm going to end up homeless, I lost my job, panicking, there's not going to be enough toilet paper, is there going to be enough food? That's a real fear for people, that there's not going to be enough food. That's our conscious mind in our limbic system, what we talked about, the amygdala, the fight, flight, freeze, that's it going off. And so how we can calm that down, because we're very aware of that, right? How we can calm that down is through meditation, to get into our subconscious and then start to create a different narrative that we're telling ourselves over and over. So instead it's, shifting to, let's say, gratitude for what we have. And I know I've mentioned this again in some other of the videos, and the more energy we spend in that positive place, the more likely that that's gonna stick. So if you think about, say, take an evaluation of your life right now, and say you have 10 coins and you have 2 baskets. One is positive thinking, one is negative thinking. If you had to divide those 10 coins, how many would go into positive thinking and how many would go into negative thinking? So most of your day, do you notice you're thinking about the bad things or the things that are going wrong or fear or anything like that? Or do you find that you're thinking about positive things? Because I can tell you it's simple. It's a simple concept of wherever your energy is going, it grows. So if you're constantly focused on the end of the world, then that's going to grow bigger and bigger. That fear is going to get bigger and bigger. Now, I'm not saying that fear isn't there, right? That fear is there. But as long as we're playing into a fear and not thinking logically, not constructively, making a plan about how we're going to get out of this, then that fear kind of takes over, and that's where panic comes in, and that's where anxiety comes in. Now, meditation helps balance it a little bit, because what I'm not saying is these people are like, oh, you just think positive. Well, I haven't really been able to do that myself, just think positive, because a lot of times this thing here is a real thing. But what I have found is I can balance it out. So instead of putting 7 of those coins into anxiety, I'm going to put 5 into anxiety and 5 into positive thinking. And meditation is a really easy way to do that. And because we're accessing our subconscious, we're in a meditative state, which is a subconscious state, then that sticks a lot better, rather than like in our head, in our ego, saying everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. Well, that's the tip of the iceberg. It can just float away. We need to get it down into the meat and potatoes and get it to stick down there. So meditation, there's tons of research showing how beneficial it is. Now, if you're like me, I'm kind of in the middle. I'll try anything once, but I also really like research to back up what I'm doing. And so now, 10 years ago, they didn't have so much research about meditation, but now there's tons of research indicating how good it is for us. So if we look at the body system when we're meditating, and we're going back into a subconscious state, which is also quieting that amygdala, right? Because our goal for fight, flight, freeze, that amygdala, the limbic system is going off, it's paralyzing everything else, is we want to be able to quiet it down so that we can think a little bit more logically. So really, when we're trying to problem solve, it's a combination of tapping into our subconscious and into our conscious mind, because we want to problem solve. The subconscious, it's not a logical thinker. It's not, your conscious mind is what does the problem solving. Although there's lots of hints, there's lots of goodies in the subconscious that can help. It helps give you clarity. It helps you see something from all perspectives, and then you can make a decision on it. So we do want to, in harmony, play with those two different pieces. So for meditation, when we get into the subconscious and when we can quiet that limbic system, when we can quiet the amygdala, what our body physically is able to do is, one, fight infection. And now more than ever, we want our body like primed, ready, ready to go. If anything enters our body, we want it to be like battle ready, gonna attack it. So, if you're just looking from a physical perspective, what the benefits are of quieting that amygdala, and at least trying meditation or trying some of these other techniques, just think about that you're taking care of your body. You're setting your body up to get ready for whatever's coming the best that you can. So it restores balance in the digestion. We already talked about this, right? Is that when we're in fight or flight, the last thing our body is concentrating on doing is digesting the burrito. So when we can meditate and get in a calmer state, our body is able to start regulating that digestion again. It decreases our blood pressure. Now, this is a huge problem in America, is high blood pressure, diabetes, and anything related to that. Those are huge. When we look at anything like heart related, when we look at that, we see across the board this is a problem. And so if we can start to incorporate things in our life that help us bring that blood pressure down now, why wouldn't we? So meditation can help bring that blood pressure down, bring your heart rate down. Now let's look at the psychological perspective of meditation. So the idea is, in meditation, it's the same. When I do hypnotherapy, people always say, I don't think I can be hypnotized. And I always say, well, have you ever prayed before? Yeah. Have you ever driven home and not remembered the whole drive home? Yeah. It's the same state of consciousness. It's getting into that subconscious. Meditation is the same. It's quieting your ego, quieting the consciousness, getting into this subconscious state, and then listening to mantras or beliefs or whatever it is that you're focusing on. If it's about releasing, if it's about, that I'm enough, if it's about gratitude, whatever it is. That's the beautiful thing about meditation, is you can choose what you want it to be about, is to get that down into the subconscious and ingrained in the subconscious. And then that reverberates through our body, right? When we're in a calmer place, then our body can keep functioning how it's supposed to. So there's no right or wrong way to meditate. You can do it sitting or laying down. For me, it just kind of depends. I check in and see what my body is asking for. I don't generally do laying down in the morning because I notice I fall back asleep, and that's a little bit too deep of consciousness that I want to be in. So in the morning, I generally am sitting up. Sometimes if I'm doing it in the middle of the day, I will lay down so I can get into complete relaxation. I recommend starting off just maybe 5-minute meditation to start off with. Something that was helpful for me in learning how to do it is it's normal for conscious thoughts to get in the way. And so if I just picture of those conscious thoughts are like in a bubble and they're just going to the surface and going to the surface and going to the surface. So it's like they come into my head and then I just let them go to the surface, let them go to the surface. The biggest thing with your posture and your position is to make sure you can be fully relaxed. So I'll see some people, like even in session, will do a hypnotherapy or meditation session, and it's like this rigid position, or their legs are crossed. You want to uncross your legs and make sure you can get into a place, like even I have the bookshelf behind me. If I wanted to rest my head, that's nice. You don't always have to rest your head. There's some people that can stand in a very stoic position. I find for me that distracts me from fully relaxing. And the idea is the more you can physically relax, the more you can relax your mind. So what we'll do is, and I'll post it after this, I'm going to do a 5 senses meditation. And the purpose of it is to bring your attention back on the present moment. So like I said, if you find yourself struggling with conscious thoughts, the tip of that iceberg coming in, like, this isn't working, is this what it's supposed to feel like, I don't like this, my to-do list, whatever it is, just imagine those in bubbles and let them go to the surface. Just release them, let them go to the surface. And then constantly bring yourself back to my voice and what I'm saying. Now, when you're first learning to meditate, I do recommend doing guided meditations and not just doing music. This will help train your brain to get into the meditative state. And it's much, much easier when you can sort of surrender your consciousness and just listen to whatever someone's telling you and follow what they're doing, rather than doing a meditation on your own, where a lot of times your consciousness is trying to guide the meditation, but you're trying to get into your subconscious and figure out what's going on. So starting off, if you haven't meditated before, maybe 5-10 minutes max, and you'll start to find what your bandwidth is, and slowly work on that. Like I told you, it took me 6 months to really see the powerful effects of meditation. So with all of this comes some grace for yourself. Don't think that you'll be able to sit down, meditate, and it'll be wonderful and you'll go about your day. I also noticed that I would notice short-term effects, but it didn't feel like it lasted. But the more I got into it and the deeper I got, the more I feel like I can now meditate in the morning and it'll last me throughout the whole day. It'll keep me connected throughout the whole day. So going back to our previous video of sympathetic and parasympathetic shock, meditation is a way to help get us out of those. So if you notice you're in sympathetic shock or you're in parasympathetic shock, remember we talked about the mind and body are disconnected when you're in those situations. So meditation gets you back into your body. And you'll notice there's a lot of techniques for meditation, but one of the techniques, at least the beginning of a meditation that you listen to, is something about your body. Orienting yourself back to your body, whether it's through your breath, paying attention to your breath, whether it's we call it a body scan. So like starting at your head or starting at your toes, and you go through and pay attention to what's happening. Whether it's 5 senses, which is bringing you back into your body using your senses. Most meditations, a lot of meditations, especially when you're first learning, is going to bring you back to your body. And that's, again, closing that mind-body and connecting them back together. Then you can move into your subconscious and figure out whatever it is that you're working on, whether you're trying to build a new belief, whether you're trying to remember something from your past. There's a lot of stuff in there, and there's a lot of ways to use the subconscious. So I recommend meditation. I like it first thing in the morning. You don't have to do it first thing in the morning. There are some times that I don't get to it in the morning, and so I get to it in the evening or later in the day. Or, to be honest, a lot of times I just listen to my body And this is getting back into what we talked about before of like paying attention to your body. Of I tap in and see how it's going. Maybe I'm at work and I notice I'm in sympathetic shock, and I've been in sympathetic shock. I'm just going 1,000 miles an hour, don't really know what I'm doing, just getting stuff done. And maybe I need to close my door for 10 minutes and connect back into my body through a quick meditation. And I do 10-minute, 12-minute meditations all the time. That helps me kind of get back, get realigned, and then I can go about my day in a more connected place. So I still might have to get stuff done at work, and I still need that energy, but I want to be connected as I go through it. Like I said, you can do it at night if you want to. Whenever, find what works for you. Find the best time. Maybe it's when your kids are still asleep or after they've gone to bed. Maybe you have to time it around them. Again, this is a good thing for kids too. Remember, they have a lot shorter focus, but this is why schools are starting to integrate meditation class instead of detention. Because when kids act up and act out, they've disconnected, right? They're not mind body anymore. They're just acting, from a very primal place. So if we can start to teach them to connect it back together, and then we can talk about the behavior, or then we can talk about what they did or what needs to change, then that's way more effective than when they're in that fight flight to try and have a logical conversation with them. So it is something that you can even practice with your kids, just knowing that their capacity isn't quite as big as ours. But that's not to say that maybe their capacity is bigger than yours right now. Who knows? But that's not to say that it's not worth teaching them, because it's these kind of things that, I'm of the younger people in this advanced training for hypnotherapy, and I hear people say all the time, like, I wish I was your age when I learned this stuff. I wish I was your age when I did this work. And I'm not young by any means, but I'm glad I'm not doing this at age 60. If you are, that's fine. It's better than doing it at age 90 or not doing it at all. So the more we can give our kids of, okay, I'm doing this in my mid-30s, I want to teach this to my children when they're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and hopefully give them a tool a little bit sooner to help them navigate their own life. So that's meditation. It really is like, don't get too much in your ego, too much in your cognitive, your conscious awareness. Don't get too stuck there in the how. Because really the goal is to quiet that all down and get into your subconscious and to be able to do work in your subconscious. Quieting that amygdala, quieting the limbic system, being in a peaceful place so that you can make logical decisions and you can tap into that prefrontal cortex if you want to. That it's not running, that it's all a choice. It's not running your life. You're choosing to go into, whatever place you want. So I'm going to stop there and post a 5 senses meditation that I'm going to do, and it's going to be probably about 10 minutes, and try it out. There's also, I like to use the app Insight Timer. You can search different topics. So sometimes I want to work on abundance, sometimes I want to work on happiness, sometimes I want to work on stress. And you can find a meditation that goes with what you want to focus on. I find that is very helpful when I meditate, is to make sure I'm working on something that I want to work on, that I'm not listening to a meditation about stress when I don't feel stressed, but I want to work on abundance. That's been really important to me as well. So we'll stop right there. Stay tuned for the 5 senses meditation and more videos.